Thank you for joining FCSUA's February Informational Webinar, Linking Career Pathways for Students with Intellectual Disabilities in Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs. My name is Iris Neal. I am the Program Manager and Outreach Coordinator at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. This webinar is being recorded. Our panel today includes Dr. Lisa Martino, an Associate Lecturer and Academic Program Coordinator, and Dr. Sarah Shaw, a Lecturer for the Center, the Career and Workforce Education Programs at UCF. Both of them are from that department. And then we have Christian Zimmerman, who is FCSUA's Technical Assistant Coordinator for Technical Colleges. He will be facilitating the discussion today. If you are having difficulties hearing the presentation, phone numbers that can be used to call in will be added to the chat bar. And then at the bottom of the platform, the Zoom platform, you will see buttons for raising your hand and the chat box. You can either raise your hand or post your questions in the chat box. At this time, I am going to turn the webinar over to Christian.
Thank you, Iris. Right. Says I'm muted, but I'm not. All right. So Dr. Shaw, Dr. Martino, whoever would like to go first, if you could please just share a little bit about yourselves and your background and what drew you to work in career and technical education.
Hi, everyone. I'll go in first. I was like many people in career and tech ed, I was a mid-life changer. I was a medical transcriptionist for 15 years. Before that, computer work and typing and secretarial work and going way back. And after 15 years, my hands were cramping up. Typing really big words. So somebody said, "Hey, we need a teacher in our tech center, in our tech college." I go, "Oh, that's really neat. We need a medical transcriptionist teacher." And I said, "Sure, let me try that." They threw me in a classroom without any prep. Said, "Here's your textbook, go." And but I did not sink. I swam and I had fun with it. So then I just kept going back to school and getting my degrees, and then I became the teacher educator, the CTE teacher educator, and here I am in charge of the career and tech ed program at UCF. So that's phenomenal. A little bit, yeah, it's a little, but that's the way we go. That's how we roll, that's, you have to have the expertise to be the CTE teacher. That comes first. So it's really fun because we have students who are in every one of the 17 career clusters and pathways, and we teach them how to be a teacher in their area of expertise. So our students are exciting, the programs are exciting, and that's what we love.
Well, yeah, that's fantastic. And until you and I met, I think Dr. Shaw was there as well at FACTI. I didn't know UCF had a degree program for career and technical education in addition to a certificate program. We actually have one of our program coordinators from Panelists County, I believe, that is in the process of applying to come to UCF as an undergraduate to get her degree in career and tech ed.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, and unfortunately, we're a little tiny program, but we have some staying power because we are statewide, and this program actually has been one of the first programs at UCF. It's over 30 years old. So it's had a lot of changes and ups and downs in the years, but we started out as the first distance education program in the 70s when there weren't any computers, but they called it distance education because you go a distance and I go a distance, and that's the teacher. But they would do that, and it would go through the mail, like the assignments and all this stuff. So the professors back then would travel to a library in the middle of the state, and the teachers would, you know, meet them there, and they would take the tests at the library, and that's how they did it back then, because it is, you know, that type of program where you have to cover the whole state. So, and now we have a wonderful program with actual technology, and no one has to drive to take a test. But we have some staying power because when we're needed, you know, it's exciting.
Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting to see the progression of career and technical education, you know, from back in the voc ed days to, you know, now with career and technical education and kind of what you're saying about distance learning. And now we're seeing at the federal level, at least, a large investment in those distance learning centers, those DLCs, specifically for career and tech ed. So kind of things come full circle sometimes. All right, Dr. Shaw, how about you?
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I see actually some names that I recognize, so awesome. My name is Sarah Shaw. I am a new faculty member. It's my 4th year in the career and workforce education. My path, much like Dr. Martino's, was all over the place. I came from a strong performing arts background. I, in fact, went to an arts high school. I'm a musician, a dancer, but with that, I kind of, you know, I was teaching a bit. I was teaching dance. I was teaching some music lessons. So I started on a traditional education route into elementary education. But in the meantime, I lived in Las Vegas, and what is a big industry in Las Vegas, hospitality. So as I was going to school, I was working in hospitality, and I was talking to Dr. Martino about this. I think it's because I was a little more patient than some other people. I always fell into a training role, whether I liked it or not. So I just kind of started looking at training, looking at some of the holes in the training structures. And I worked for a big organization, and how we were not supporting some new employees the way I think we should have been, supporting them in order to make them successful. So I kind of fell into it a little bit. And then I purposely went on with my education, doing curriculum instruction, specifically in career and technical education in the post-secondary education realm. So, and that's when I started moving on with that. But it wasn't a straight path. Hospitality was just how I was paying my bills at the time. And then I realized what was needed. And then, not to age myself, but it was called vocational education back then. And there was a certain stigma about it. So it took me a while to really understand what it did for the workforce. And it wasn't the throwaway school, but how purposeful curriculum really supported students. And one of them being my cousin, actually doing really well in her career.
Well, I think, that devaluation of CTE is something we've definitely, I think, rebounded from. We like to make the joke sometimes, you don't value CTE until your AC system breaks in the middle of August and you get that bill. I also thought it was interesting, the performing arts. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but when I was an undergrad at University of Oregon, we had to take liberal art core curriculum courses. And one of the courses some of my football player buddies and I took was dance. We actually had to take dance, had to do a film history course, and then musical history. But we actually had a final project where we had to come up with an interpretive dance. Oh, good. Kendall's here. Speaking of the person who might be coming to UCF. So there was 5 of us, and we came up with an interpretive lawn care maintenance dance. That was the instructor thought it was hilarious, the professor, because she was a prima ballerina, and we tried ballet and getting up on point. And I was the smallest. I had a lot of Samoan friends with me, and so seeing some guys that were pushing 400 pounds trying to get up on their toes was inspirational.
Remember that dance, and can you show us?
Well, I do remember the sprinkler. We had the lawnmower. Yeah, muscle memory. It's still there. Yeah, I'll do the full choreography, with blocking and everything another time. So, okay, great. So, and I'll open this up to either of you. What are some opportunities that people have if they wanted to further their education and career in technical education?
So CTE and workforce education, training and development, those are all under the same umbrella. So it's not just a CTE teacher. If somebody wants to, let's say, they really love designing the programs, they could be a career and tech ed specialist, a curriculum specialist. They could be a support staff. They could be, after 3 years or 5 years as a CTE teacher, they can move up the ladder and become a program coordinator, manager, director, dean of a technical college. That's the pathway of the standard CTE teacher way to go. But you can also do side things, like when I have my I post a lot of jobs on my Facebook page, and career and tech ed and workforce education, we have a lot of opportunities. It's not just that one pathway. So I'm going to give you guys the link to my Facebook group page so you can see all the really cool jobs I post there, and it gives you an idea. But they make good money. I mean, I had students who are, we have just got the Bureau of Adult Education program assistant, teachers at the correctional facilities, career and academic advisors. Actually, that's becoming a big thing in our program. We're getting a lot of career advisors in our program because they find it so helpful to understand, because our program, we work with all of the career clusters. So they get a really strong foundational knowledge to learn about all the career pathways and how you go from A to B, and articulation agreements and career readiness, workforce education. So that is really helpful in their careers, and we're getting a lot more advisors in our programs now. Career development specialist, that's the same thing as a career advisor. We have all kinds of opportunities. It's not just teachers, it's anything that has to do with careers and pathways. It could be teaching, it could be training, it could be corporate trainers, talent and development trainers. They actually make a lot of money. I don't know. That was crazy when I found that out. But they do very well. Deputy Director of Postsecondary and Workforce Education. These guys come to us and ask us to post on our website for our students. So it's not just a small little niche. Our program, you would think, should be like gigantic and huge and like front and center, but you know. I'm just saying. But I'm proud of our program. Sarah, you got anything to add? HRD, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
usually human resource development is aligned at a lot of universities with workforce and career CTE. It's not here, but HRD is another alignment as well. But there's just, like Dr. Martina said, there's just a lot of pathways, a lot of career opportunities within those pathways. It's not just CTE teachers, workforce development agencies, anything with that content knowledge, you're able to grow.
Yeah, and also the like everybody knows, the one stops and the workforce development agencies, and we have a graduate certificate in leadership and workforce development, and a master's degree. So a lot of people that are interested in workforce development and those competency-based training programs for government agencies and for business and industry. They learn a lot about those types of pathways and what that job entails through those courses that we designed.
I dropped it in the chat as well. We have a new PhD program that is coming up in fall. So it is an interdisciplinary PhD. We work with the higher education and education leadership programs. So people look out. If you're looking that way, we have a specific pathway. So if you're looking to, pursue education, whether or not it's needed for your leadership position or, just for your own knowledge, lifelong learning, there is a CTE specific pathway in that PhD interdisciplinary program. And I can drop a marketing flyer too in there as soon as I find it.
That would be
I
great.
found it. Yeah, I found it. I got the link.
That would be
right
great. Dr. Martino, I had that same background up for a while, but I've got this headset on, and Iris told me it looked like I had a halo. So, but that is one of my favorite backdrops for this. And we'll segue here in a little bit to ACTE, but what I'm hearing from you both, just the ability of people to gain additional education and knowledge in career and tech ed here at UCF is pretty unbelievable. And we have a connection to ACTE that I found out kind of by happen circumstance. ACTE's executive director, Leanne Curry, her daughter is here at UCF. She's a sophomore in the business department. So Leanne will be coming here to campus here pretty soon, and we're looking forward to visiting with her. So with that, I do want to segue, because not only are Dr. Shaw and Dr. Martino peers of mine, I know that Dr. Shaw was an ACTE fellow. Dr. Martino, though, I did not know that you were a previous fellow. So if you would, please tell us both a little bit about your fellowship experiences and your project.
Well, I was the experienced ACTE leadership fellow. I think it was 2020, right when COVID hit. So I didn't get to do all the really cool things, unfortunately. But we had a kind of watered down one. I don't know what you guys are doing now and that, but it was really a lot of fun. We didn't get to go to Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, we didn't get that opportunity. But we did a lot of leadership work. We did a lot of group work. We did a lot of, the Zoom calls and the, I think we did a professional development thing. I was also, but, so that one unfortunately wasn't as robust as I would have liked it. I'm sure Sarah has more information for you on that one. She was in the next year, right?
Which one were you talking about? I've been in a lot of.
Yeah.
Oh, the one that you just completed, the one I think when we met in Chicago. You got your hardware though in San Antonio, didn't you? Or was it in Chicago? Your trophy.
Yes, it's for service.
Yeah.
I do like to be involved, and I think as educators we should be involved in understanding and growing in different capacities. I've done the ACT Leadership Fellowship. I've done policy. Gone to the policy review as well when it was first, like in 2017, a while ago. I try to make myself available. I'm in advanced CTE fellowship currently. And then the ECMC Foundation when it was North Carolina and NC State as well. And I think Dr. Martino and I both like to still be involved. I'm currently a mentor with the ECMC fellow. So I think it's just really important. I guess overall, having these projects, there's certain of them are my passion projects, but much of it is for the advancement of CTE and getting us out there. And again, Dr. Martino had talked about, we are a small program and we are just looking at ways to grow our program, do these types of professional development through networking. We are an online program. We want to reach out past Florida. There should be no reason to have those barriers out there, considering what we can do in our reach with our program.
Yeah, especially with the extent of what you're able to provide,
Right.
from certificate all the way up to now we're hearing terminal degrees, that is just incredible.
Yeah, and Sarah and I met in our ECMC research fellowship in 2019. That's how we met. I was studying my area of interest, research interest, is career and tech ed, teacher education, training, and retention. And Sarah, you want to share your area? She does that as well, but she does a lot more too.
So I look at female leadership and for workforce education. So looking at decision-making processes, female leaders may or may not take in their career development.
So, excuse me, Christian, we have a couple questions.
Yep.
One is to explain ACTE to the organization and the fellowship program, and then talk about the program itself the fellowship program that you're talking about.
Yeah, so I just dropped a link in there to ACT, and that's, when we say ACT, I know a lot of times we get stuck in initialisms and abbreviations and those fun things. ACT is the Association of Career and Technical Education, and they have a wide range of fellowship programs that people can sign up for. I believe we may actually have somebody, I think I saw Jennifer on this call from Osceola County. I believe Jennifer is applying to be in the next cohort of ACTE's next level leadership, post-secondary leadership. It's a mouthful, which is the one that I just completed. And, kind of like in Dr. Martino's experience was a little different because of COVID. Mine was a little different because when I got in, the first travel date we had was a couple weeks after we were accepted into the fellowship. And that was to go to New Orleans. Nunez College right there in New Orleans was going to be the site visit. And I wasn't able to go, but my cohort, we bonded quite a bit. And we're reuniting in March. We're going to be going back to Nunez and doing another site visit, but this time as an entire cohort. And we've been lucky enough to get some financial support for that from the ECMC Foundation. So I would encourage anybody who's looking to grow in career and tech ed to look into one of these fellowships. I can tell you a little bit about my experience. I had a wonderful mentor who's become a friend of mine. That's Dustin Hicks. He's out of Midlands Technical College in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then the wonderful Dr. Deanna Little, who's also out of Midlands Tech, was kind of our overseer. Worked a lot with Michael Connett. If you've been to any ACTE event, Michael Connett is the MC to beat all MCs. He's just an amazing individual. And then I couldn't get away from this without mentioning another friend of mine, Dr. Sophia Alston. Dr. Alston leads the PACE division, and Dr. Alston, I think this is public knowledge now, Dr. Alston is going to be heading up not only the PACE division of ACTE, but she's also going to be taking over the fellowship. So really excited to see what Sophia is able to do in that role. There's links. I believe the window has closed for the fellowship programs for this year. I think so. Okay, thank you, Sarah. I believe it closed back in January. But I would encourage anybody, again, if you're looking to learn about CTE, for me, it taught me a lot about CTE at the national level. I was fortunate enough to go to the National Policy Summit. I'll be going back there in March, which is up in DC, hearing about some of the legislative things that are kind of coming up, as well as ACTE Vision, post-secondary. I mean, there's a conference for everything with ACTE. Work-based learnings in Bellevue, Washington this year. If you're interested in work-based learning opportunities, developing apprenticeships, that's a great one. Post-secondary division, probably forgetting one or two in there. But they really are good opportunities. And most of them contain a supplement of some sort. If they don't, I believe there's travel included with the program cost. I don't know as much about it. And then, yes, thank you. IVEDA is the global version. Thank you, Dr. Martino. Okay, Sarah, could you tell us a little bit more? I wanted to kind of touch on something you mentioned. How can we encourage more female students to enroll in courses that are typically male? And I have a connection to this that I'll share after you're done.
Well, go ahead, sorry. I think it's getting the word out there. I think it's purposeful recruitment. I think it's understanding populations across the board. And it's making it more accessible. We talk about accessibility and then understanding those populations and those barriers, getting into those conversations. It's about, it's such a big topic for me, but having the support structures in place to get those students where they need to be. And that's, systemic, institutional, that's, you as the instructor reaching out as well. It's very much all encompassing. But I think with purposeful recruitment and not haphazardly trying to do things, I think is like the first step into getting these students into these non-traditional roles.
And I think that's phenomenal. And, this is something that obviously here at the center, we are big proponents of is, getting more people into roles that maybe some folks didn't think they could work in. I have one of my fellow cohort friends is a gentleman named David Schaafstall. Dave's out of Virginia, and his daughter is a welder. and he noticed that when his daughter started enrolling in some of the welding courses at the secondary level, that there, were more female students who got into welding. And then she went into post-secondary. She's gotten a number of certifications. And NCCER and Miller are actually working to develop some promotional and marketing materials using David's daughter. Because I think another piece of that is, the more students see somebody that they can identify with, the more likely they are to think they can do it. So why not have more, females in welding gear, and welding promotional? Why not have more men in scrubs, to promote nursing programs, and things like that. So, and I do appreciate you both have added ACTER research, which is right in my line with my heart. I love research and reading. And then I already mentioned Evada Global. So, all right, let's get into some questions here. All right, so Dr. Martino, based on your knowledge and experience, what do you really see as the future of career and technical education? We'll start here in Florida, but if you could, then maybe look nationally.
Well, like I said, there's a lot of ups and downs to this field, like I'm sure every field or industry. But I think COVID actually put us in the spotlight, because they realized that all the essential workers were CTE people. So, we were all sitting home and everything was closed, and we still needed the world to work. And the people that were doing that were CTE people. So we had all the health industries and the people delivering the food, and things were still moving, and we needed that workforce to be current and active and working for us so that we can continue our lives. So I think when that happened, the light bulb went on to a lot of people, and they said, "Oh, this is really important." So Florida is actually, and they've done this before COVID. They actually, they did start something called. There was an initiative in Florida, and actually they're seen as somebody going full force into the workforce education type areas. And the initiative, I'm trying to find how, Get There is the name of it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Get There is the initiative that the Florida government has put out. They are pushing this out to pathways for people. You can see their little background here, and it shows women with hard hats on and all this other stuff. So they're doing a really actually great job, and a lot of people are in other states are looking at what's happening there. So it's getting there with Get There. And it's the field is going higher, but we see a lot of different words thrown at us because, of course, we still have that CTE stereotype. It was the voc ed, and then they tried to change that with the change in 2006 Perkins law to change it to career and tech ed. And the difference between voc ed and career and tech ed is the requirement for academic subjects. Like before, it was just you needed to do woodworking, you just learned woodworking. But with the change in 2006, math and English have been added to the curriculum, and the curriculum is much more purposeful and rigorous and standardized. So Florida has a wonderful website with all of the different areas and all the different programs that you can see throughout the state. There are 17 career clusters. The career cluster framework is going to change, of course, because we do that to ourselves. But Florida does have a very robust standardized program in CTE. So we're doing really well here. However, there are issues, of course. The CTE teacher education issue is a big deal because you have to get not just people who are knowledgeable in their occupation teaching classes, they also have to be knowledgeable in understanding how to teach. Because I'm sure all of you have been in a class and you've seen the difference between a good teacher and a not so good teacher, and what that means to the students in the class. So you know, that's my passion. That's where I step in and I have the biggest voice. And Sarah can tell you, I practically yell at people and to make them listen to me. They need to learn how to do these things. Because I've been there. I was the one that got thrown into the classroom and along with my other fellow CTE teachers. And I managed to do it well because I don't know, I had a knack for it. But I've seen other teachers just lose control of their class, and it was just chaos. Nobody learned anything, and they came to me crying, and I helped them, and that's how I got involved. So you know, the good thing is the push for the programs. The bad thing is the support for those programs, because we have 500,000 people in the state of Florida taking some type of CTE class, something, okay? And our class, our program at the bachelor's level is the only one left in the state of Florida. And I have a small program. So who's training these people? Okay. So are they getting robust education? Are they getting the training they need to support all the different types of diversity and levels in those CTE programs? Are they getting enough information to know how to teach a student with special needs? Actually, in the state of Florida, they are required to take a special populations class. We offer that in our program, as well as the other required programs. There are 4 classes in the state of Florida that are mandated for CTE teachers. They've got 3 years after they get hired to take these classes. Okay. So what happens to those 3 years with those students that don't get that? Anyway, so it's still such a difficult thing because we need students, we need teachers to teach these programs, and they have to be current in their field. They have to have experience in their field. They have to have all these certifications. They have to know how to organize the program. They have to know all the laws, the Perkins rules and the ESSA rules and the special populations rules and all those other. So it's not just a teacher in a classroom that like an academic teacher, you know, Shakespeare is Shakespeare, right? But if you're, I mean, I was an English teacher, so I'm just, yeah, I did 2 years, I did my time. So when you do that, you know, there's a lot of moving pieces to a CTE teacher. That's why they actually make a little bit more money. It's like their own business in a school, because they have to, if it's a culinary program, they have to have the equipment running. They have to get grants for the equipment and for the food and for, you know, the CTSO, and they need an advisory board. It's an actual business inside the class. And so there's a lot that you need to know, and that's what we do in our programs. That's what we teach in our programs, how to manage all that. And so do I wish that they would take our program before they become a teacher? That would be ideal, because you wouldn't see a lot of dropout, and you know, it would be a wonderful thing for the students. But right now it's not that way. So there's a critical CTE teacher need in Florida and across the state.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I know, you know, at the national level, there are efforts to remove some of the barriers for teacher retention in career and technical education. One of the things Florida's done a really good job at is some of those, what do they call, like professional learning, or where they can, you know, like I'm a masonry instructor, I've got 20 years in field that can be used to credit towards the pay. And I just want to mention on the side, usually when we do these webinars, our team is scrambling behind the scenes to answer the questions as they pop up. And you two work so well together. You're answering questions like as they come up. So kudos, my hat's off. Hey, you know, Dr. Martino,
we're a great team.
you are. And, you know, when I came into it, I was in construction, and the company that I was running, we got absorbed by a large corporation called Paul Davis Restoration. And so I decided I wanted to go into teaching after that. And I always tell the joke, but it's 100% true. We sold in November, what was it, 2010. And by January, I was teaching freshman English. And I had come in for a teacher who was retiring. So, you know, my students had a semester of not really having to work, and me coming in from field, like there are no excuses, that kind of thing. It was interesting. It was interesting. Okay, Dr. Shaw. So I'll throw that same question to you. What do you see as the future of CTE? What are some things to be on the lookout for?
So I think, like building off of what Dr. Martino said, I think Florida does a great job. And we just had a conversation about this with another program with workforce alignment, making sure that we're giving people degrees that can be, so they end up being able to support themselves coming out of it, right? And I'm not sure, other places are really thinking like that, but CTE, career and workforce education, we want workers that have sustainability. And I think Florida really, with those initiatives, is doing a great job there. So I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see more conversations around dual enrollment, industry recognized credentials, and the strengthening of apprenticeships and CTE as well. All very, very important for getting these employees trained, getting them salaries, and having those kind of experiences being paid, I think is really important as well, because that proves as a huge barrier to many of our populations when they have to take unpaid internships.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we all understand that as a barrier. It sounds like sometimes people don't understand, like they have to pay, like I had to take, just me, like anecdotally, I had to do teacher education, I had to do my internship, I had to figure it out, and I had to work nights, and they were like, oh, just take off of work. Many of us can't just take off of work in order to, and it's interesting, you would think that this is known, but we still have to advocate for our students that we want them paid, we want to get them credentialed, and then we want a career pathway that is sustainable for them.
And I think those are all at the forefront of things that we need to be mindful of, and also looking for ways, that we can work locally and at the national level to really have our voices heard with regards to those. And I think that's something some folks don't really understand, is the power that they have, even if it's going to your local legislator or your local senator or member of Congress's, office in your area, right? And just talking about CTE and the impact that it's making on lives. I know one thing I've been seeing, a lot of is AI. AI is kind of, I wouldn't say next big thing, since it's already here. And I know there was a question in the chat about, if you have a student who's homeschooled. I've seen some pretty incredible things. ZSpace comes to mind. ZSpace's augmented reality platform, I think, is revolutionary. I know a few people at some DLCs, those distant learning centers, and they speak very highly of these. So, and I just, on a personal level, I have a member of my family who is a young man with autism, and my brother and I are looking at some opportunities to expose him to career and technical education. And I've been working with his team. They're over in Germany, but at a DoD school. And we're looking at getting some of that technology for my nephew so that he can, if he wants to look at an engine, he can pull an engine out, from the comfort of his own home. I think if you're looking for, oh, thank you. You guys are on top of these questions. This is awesome. If you're looking at funding, the CHIPS Act was a big piece. I think it was $80 billion that they allocated for CHIPS Act funding. We know that Florida really didn't get in on that. Really, I think it was just Osceola County that got a nice little portion of that. And then kudos to Steve Durago there in Osceola County. He leveraged that at the state level and was able to get the state to increase the funding over the federal amount. But I've heard numbers as high as $500 billion that'll be invested at the federal level for grants and programs to increase AI opportunities. So for those of you on the lookout, as we all are, for funding opportunities, I think having something in line with AI or augmented reality could be the way to go. I would caution you, though, as we found out here in the office when we piloted some AR technology, if you have a fear of heights, don't do the replace the diode on top of the telephone pole. My office mate Cheryl has a video of me literally like sweat as I'm up on top, and I look down, and it felt like I was about 500 or 600 feet in the air. It was terrifying, but it taught me an important lesson that I don't ever want to do that job. So better to learn it there than go through a year's worth of training and then get up on a ladder and figure it out the hard way.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dr. Martino, how do we get industry certified instructors more knowledgeable about scaffolding? And I think you had brought up a really good point, and this is something that we've grappled with as well, is a lot of these instructors just don't have the K-12 skills, you know? So what are some ideas that maybe that an industry instructor could scaffold their instruction?
Are you talking about instructional strategies that you want to share with people?
Yes, correct.
So I have a whole program of those. So that's a big conversation. The best thing I can tell somebody who's thinking about being a career and tech ed teacher, and this has always been my thing for anybody, is to be flexible and to be organized and be over prepared. Those things are the best things that you can do for anyone to manage a class in their first time. You need to have more than one lesson plan ready. Okay, you have to look at your program requirements and work backwards and create the lesson plans based on those. So like, what do I have to do? There's a lot of planning to do. There's a lot of things that teachers do that students never see. You think that they're just babysitters and they're standing in front of a class. A good teacher spends months on their curriculum, and they have more than they need so that they can pull it out of their portfolio and go, okay, that technology is not working today. You know what? I have these handouts, or let's do group work, or, you have to have all of these things ready to go, because you have 1 minute of downtime in that class while you're thinking of what to do, and you've lost the class. So it's really important to know what you're going to say and lay it out and be organized, but you always have to be flexible because something always comes up. So when we're teaching in our classes, all of our classes are online. Dr. Shaw and I both are part of the curriculum design of those classes. And so we have access to we created blueprints, and we update those classes all the time. So we know what's in them, and we are ready, because then we'll say, okay, now Advanced CTE just created a brand new career cluster framework. All of our classes, 30 plus online classes, have something with the CTE career clusters, of course. And so now we can't take it away because Florida's still using the old one. We can't just take it away, but we have to talk about it. So we have to add that to all of our classes. So it's constantly keeping up to date. So that's another strategy, a building block strategy, is know your industry. What's going on in it? Not only are you a teacher, but you're still an industry expert, because you have to be knowledgeable. You need to have an advisory board of your peers that looks at your curriculum and says, you know what, we're not even using that. I don't know why you have that, and why are you teaching that to your students? I'm not even using that. And I'll give you an example. Yeah, strong partnerships. When I first became a career medical transcriptionist, I was doing a digital files. Like, I was working, when I was a medical transcriptionist, I had contracts with 3 major hospitals across the nation, one in Montana, one in Georgia. So I had all these contracts in all these different states. Well, they didn't send me those little tiny tapes. They sent it to me digitally, and I had digital equipment. And so I played the digital tapes and I typed, what the reports were. When I went into the classroom, they had the little cassette players. I'm like, what are you doing with these things? well, that's what they use. I said, yeah, the doctor down the street, but if you want them to actually make money, they're going to be going, they're going to be national. They're going to be, they need to have the digital stuff. And they're like, digital? So I had to like completely talk them into adding all new like foot pedals that attach to the computer and all this other. So I had to like give them all that information because they didn't know that, they didn't have somebody who was current in the field. And so they were training people, and it was not helpful for them to get a job because what happens when they get the job? And they're like, where's the little tape thing? It doesn't look well. So you have to be in your field and you got to be current. So that's another thing that you have to do. So, but it's plan, and be aware, and flexible. And that's the best I can give you in 5 minutes short.
Hey, that was great. That was great. That flexibility. I love what you said about a minute of dead air. If you have a minute of dead air in a classroom of 14-year-olds, good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember pausing to sneeze and losing half my class. It's just, that's the nature of it, right? I know, when I was working at Fort Myers Technical College, one of the things that was really helpful to my students was chunking some of those bigger sections and just breaking it down into more digestible pieces for them. Especially when you look at, some of the textbooks, that's the other thing when people talk about CTE, it's just CTE. And I used to love bringing in the HVAC textbook and showing it to somebody, which
It's
the
serious.
HVAC textbook,
Yeah.
it's bigger than biology or history. That thing's massive. And those students get through that in a year. So, they're like, well,
And
when I was in college, we had to read. And I said, well, yeah, here's what they have to do,
they
and
gotta
they
look
don't
at,
get nearly as much time,
very technical language too, very
Oh,
high
yeah,
level stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very high level. Okay.
Mhm.
Dr. Shaw, what are some strategies that you see CTE2 teachers doing well? And what are some areas that they could improve in?
These are really big questions, huh? Um, generally, just again, piggybacking here, and building, CTE teachers have that industry knowledge. So they understand the knowledge that they want to impart on their students, or they should, right? Like staying up to date, understanding what AI or AR is, how that's impacting, all very, very important. I think sometimes when it depends. I actually was just thinking about this almost like children with training wheels, and having these conversations, like some student or, maybe some kiddos won't need their training wheels for very long. Some might be coming into your program and don't need the training wheels because they, have so much experience in education. But then sometimes, you really need to push them. They're past this and they need to move forward and build in their own capacity. So it's really trying to understand where these CTE teachers are when they come into our program. I will say that probably the biggest part of feedback that I give is really understanding for them to break it down, like scaffold this information. You have all this information in your head. You know what they want to do. I think my feedback mostly is like, you got to break it down. Like, talk to me like I'm a child, and how you are going to explain this to your students when they're building curriculum, building lesson plans, understanding objectives, like this education vernacular, and trying to get them aligned with that, because they have all this industry expertise, and they have to understand how now to break it down to students that don't or want it, or at different levels of where they are in the program as well.
Well, I think you bring up a great point. In dealing with CTE instructors, a lot of them, they know their stuff, right? They know plumbing, they know masonry, they know automotive, but then you talk to them about lesson plans or a referral, whatever it may be, and you just kind of see that, oh no. But I found that empowering them, because a lot of times they get so lost, and you mentioned the vernacular and the different terms. And I remember talking to an instructor about universal design by learning. And this was actually a plumbing instructor, And, you know, it was almost like we were talking two different things. And once I started walking through the different parts of UDL, he just kind of had that aha moment or that epiphany where he realized, well, I'm already doing that. And that's what he actually said. Well, I'm already kind of doing that. And I said, you're not kind of doing it, you are doing it, you know? And I think, but that's ingrained in that CTE mentality, because having run construction crews, I need to be able to relay information to people of all different educational and academic levels. And I need to be able to talk to that skilled historical restoration carpenter the same, or communicate different ideas to the drywall person. And that's going to be separate from the cabinet person. You know, so having that adaptability is part of their job. They just don't always understand the correlation to education. So I think that that's a great point. Okay, I know we are running a little low on time here. So we're gonna have one more question for you, Dr. Martino and Dr. Shaw, and then we'll field some questions from the audience. So let's go back to you, Dr. Martino. What value do you see with micro-credentials and digital badging with CTE?
Yeah, so, you know, this, I find that really funny. These, talking about new terms, okay? There's always a new term to something. So micro-credentialing is basically competency-based learning, and it's industry certifications. We've been doing this already for decades. It's not new. I'm sorry, but you know, okay, so competency-based learning is when you learn a section at a time, just like what you were talking about. You're basically saying, I just need to, you know, I need to learn this. Like, okay, let's talk about Microsoft Office. So you have all those different programs, and you're really just working in Word. You just want to be certified in Word. You would take a Microsoft Office Word quick course, and you know that's what micro credentialing would be, because then you would get a little diploma or certification that you got that. That's upskilling, that's reskilling, that's basically training. That's training and development. And so it's just new words for something that we've already been doing. It's, you know, it's just, it adds to the degree, because when you get a degree in a field, when you go to college and you get a degree, and you know, CTE, I'm talking about anything from a 1-year certificate to a 2-year certificate in CTE, and then that can actually take you forward and going, you know, you can also go back to school and then do all that, like articulation and do all those other things. But let's just say you get out of high school and you're like, you know what, I just want to be a secretary. I'm gonna be a secretary. And so you go to secretarial school, you go to a clerical school, administration school, they call it now. I had secretary school, sorry. But now it's administration, you know, office specialists or something like that. So then you take that program and then you get a job, and they're like, well, you need certification in this, you need to be certified in Microsoft Office, you need to be certified in OSHA, you need to be, so those certifications are the micro credentialing that we're talking about now. So it's kind of the same thing. So where do I see it? People like to put new bows on things. Sorry, it's already there. Okay, they're gonna pay, they're gonna give us money and push it. That's wonderful. So that it only helps CTE because it is related. It's just upskilling and reskilling skills that you need for an occupation specific area, and that's going to never go away. They're just going to change the name of it.
Well, yeah, and you
to,
bring up a great point. I mean, I was last week, I was talking to somebody at NCCER, and I mentioned something about micro credentials, and you know, you think that I had just stomped on their toe, you know. Well, you know, it's bad digital badging. Okay, you know, I'll step back a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it has been around for quite some time. Stackable credentials as well. We are seeing, I think, more of a, like, I'll go back to NCCER, right? They've now partnered with, is it Credly? I think that Pearson bought out Credly, the micro credentialing site. So they now have those NCCER credentials up to, like, there's like 150 clock hour customer service credential now with the NCCER endorsement. So, all right, Dr. Shaw, I'll give the same question to you, or you can just say ditto. Talk about that value of digital badging and micro credentials.
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. Ditto across the board. You know, it's bridging the skills gaps that we need. We're talking about like extending pathways for these, you know, for employees and a career pathway to get to the next level. Their leadership trajectory might need them as well. So really important. I also think accessibility, many of them being online, having that flexibility of those credentialing is really important, especially for working adults. With all of the different family things happening, extremely important to help their career trajectories. And then it's important that they are industry recognized, of course, like, you know, be thorough with your investigation in them, but they are industry recognized, like Microsoft, they're asking for these credentials. So yes, across the board. It's supportive of lifelong learning, all of the things that, you know, CTE values.
And I'm glad you mentioned that national certification, because I think that's something important to consider. And I know we have Dr. Vieta on here from Robert Morgan over in Miami-Dade. She's been doing a lot with micro-credentialing for the last several years. And having, you know, I'll go back, NCCR, ASE for automotive, you know, having that little symbol in the corner as an employer, you know, when I used to interview people for construction and trade jobs, you know, if you came to me and I didn't know what the credential was, or I couldn't really, like, I don't know what this is. If I see NCCER or ASE, I know, you know, I know what that is. And it, you know, sure, it's a short program that you did, but especially when we talk about, you know, those career pathways for students with intellectual disabilities, having some sort of recognized industry credential goes so far, right? Because I can then say, you know, I love this job, I want to be a carpenter, but if I can show you, you know, that I have the carpenter's apprentice certification from a nationally recognized organization, then it's not just me, right? I'm saying, hey, you know, here's this proof that nationally I'm up to par. You know, I am able to do this job. Okay, I know we are running short on time. I think, again, thank you, Dr. Martino and Shaw, for answering a lot of these questions and for pivoting so many times throughout this. Are there any questions any of you out there in Zoom land have that haven't been asked in the chat?
Somebody did ask about connecting it to students with intellectual disabilities and pathways. That was what they wanted to know. And so I thought I wanted to bring that up. So we, you know, CTE has a lot of laws that we have to, you know, of course, because the teachers all do, but specifically for, we call them special populations. And so we actually have a class called Special Populations in CTE, and we redesigned it. Dr. Shaw is actually teaching it now. And, you know, just to give you a little bit of history, Perkins is the federal funding grant for CTE programs since, I don't know, what was the first grant? I don't know, 100 years ago. And so, well, Perkins 1 was 1984, but it was all different names before then, but CTE has been around for a while, right? So it has grown since then and has morphed and changed. Now, in 1984, Perkins 1's special population categories, they had a section there that said you had to promote access for students with disabilities, students, they called them handicapped individuals. I'm looking at the old language there. They were called disadvantaged students, the adults who are in need of training and retraining, and single parents. So these are all special populations. It has morphed over the years until the most recent Perkins 5 in 2018 was re-signed, and you have to actually provide, it's a requirement to provide students with special populations equal access into programs. So we are now required to support this subsection, this special population section. And those sections are defined by the ESSA Act as, so it's individuals with disabilities, individuals from economically disadvantaged families, including low-income youth and adults, individuals preparing for non-traditional fields, single parents, including single pregnant women, out of workforce individuals, English learners, homeless individuals, youth who are in or have aged out of foster care systems, and youth with a parent who is a member of the armed forces or is on active duty. So those are all the special populations where CTE programs in schools have to make sure that they have equal access for these programs. And so our class is one of the required state mandated courses for CTE teachers. And in the class, Dr. Bart, I'll hand it over to Dr. Shaw. They learn about a lot of the different ways to support those students in their classroom. So you want to go ahead, Dr. Shaw, and tell them about that?
Sure. And again, these are all, we go through every single one of these identified special populations. So it is just one module, and just know that there's more conversations and more, this is just a quick glimpse into these populations for these undergraduates. But one of the modules we do, we go under individuals with disabilities, and we talk about the different types of disabilities, physical, sensory, cognitive, emotional disabilities, developmental, giving an overview of what this looks like in the classroom. We talk about legislation and policies surrounding these populations as well. But I'd like to just kind of touch on, I know we're definitely past time, I'm so sorry. But there's an intersection here that people forget, that it's not just everyone's in their perfect little pockets, that a lot, there is the strong possibility there's an intersection of a student with disability who is also ELL, who is also, a student aging out of foster systems. And it's really understanding the complexities of the student experience. And so the overall assignment, we go through these modules, but having a philosophy and how to support these types of students to give them the most accessible and the best opportunity to be successful in these classrooms as well. So again, it's just like a very quick shot. It's one course with these modules because we want every student to understand what Perkins 5 is outlining with special populations, but we also want to know, we want them to know that, there's a strong possibility of intersection. We don't all just have one identity, right? So it's the intersection of those identities and how that can be impactful to the student experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both of you, for those great answers. And, I did there was a couple people that had asked for some additional information, and I believe I shared my email with you. I think it's important to note that of the 33 Florida post-secondary comprehensive transition programs that we have, 17 of those are located on technical college campuses. We have 9 on state college campuses, and many of those have a CTE component to them as well. So for those of you looking for some additional information on these career pathways and these programs, please reach out, because as our director, Dr. Andrews, says, if you've seen one, you've seen one. A program, a course that you could take at Robert Morgan may be different than a course that you would take at Fort Myers Tech, which may be different than what you would take at Panelists Tech. So we're happy to assist and guide you in whatever direction you would like some guidance.